It has happened before, but there is nothing to compare it to how it seems now to come out. How it seems now to come out of both sides of her mouth. A scream, like foam, the rage of an entire ocean, unfolding the dimensions of the space, eventually. Eventually she will see it, and no one else will. It is as if she's trapped in a sort of idle animation, like some sort of character waiting for purpose. It's like this is all taking place after the fact, in the tender abandonment of an aftermath. Eventually she will see it, and no one else will. She will see it. She will see it. Eventually she will see it. And no one else will. She paces across the room. The camera follows her head, moving from left to right. The company claims its bodies are nearly indistinguishable from humans. Now it is too late. The evacuation still proceeds, but it is all taking place on the stage. There are no lights inside her room. There are no lights anywhere. Eventually we see two screens side by side. The footage on the left shows a woman looking on her phone, then looking at the room. The room is where she learned herself. The room is where she became herself. The footage on the right shows the same woman, seen from the outside, through the glass. She is standing by the window, looking at her phone. She is standing by the window, looking at her phone, and looking at them. Eventually it is night. She's afraid of the glass coming down. When it will be coming down, it will be in a total blackout, without one glint of light, only this great invisible crashing, caught on camera to be replayed in slow motion loop. She will see it. She will see it, and no one else will. It seems appropriate that something will happen, and she wants to tell other people so that they will know what will happen. She tells them today your mirror reflects not only your own face, but the faces of everyone you fucked or will fuck. It is quite a crowd. Eventually she looks up all the faces reflected on the screen. Faces in drag slapped on inside out, all lit from below. Ill-fitted sweaters of faces that keep showing up anywhere she goes. Eventually she tells them, now consider how you composed of everyone you've ever met. What would you accomplish as a crowd? This conspiracy of faces that you will never dream of attempting alone. There is a sign above the door that reads, "To command technology, we must lose control." Now the eyes of the feedback are playing her own memories over and over again. There is this distinctive white noise flooding the room. She thinks the limits are very flexible in their limitation. She wants to be quiet in the room with me, but her thoughts are interrupted every time their phones send another message. Eventually. Now ask her about her rights. Now ask her about her nights of insomnia, and how it seems now that the detector failed to find their faces. It's staggering how many times she had planned to fabricate a story, and it happened for real before she had a chance to do it. Eventually, she will think that it's a sign of reality become reality, but also reality becoming signs. Yet, at this moment, she's only herself, she repeats. But more simply, she won't be available because she's not being of a kind that would fit into our availability. Eventually, more simply, eventually, she won't be available. The company claims its bodies are nearly indistinguishable from humans.
The scene opens with a shot of her not quite laying down but reclining in a white nightgown.
The scene opens with the company claiming its bodies are nearly indistinguishable from humans. No, she's body ambivalent, she repeats. She repeats, I think a lot about occupying space. I think a lot about the body being ambivalent. Rain. I think a lot about sounds. I think a lot about rain that sounds like endless traffic, that sounds like the late evening wind in the leaves of the trees at the end of the garden. She remembers how once she had talked with a blind woman whose avatar had a rooftop balcony, similar to the one you see here, and who could see the view from it more clearly than the world beyond her screen. That woman had said that, at a certain point, we would come to regard the real world as an archaic, lovable place. The point here is that if she wants to understand the invisible world of machine to machine, she needs to unlearn how to see like a human, Yet at this moment she is only herself, she repeats. Yet at this moment she is only herself, she repeats. She repeats, I really wish people didn't feel this safe around me. And so for much of the show, she will be perched silently on this table, methodically filling up transparent pills on glass shelves. Scrolling the screen of your phone while spinning in your office chair, she repeats. 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 She's currently working on strengthening a self-functioning managing system to create a gateway inside a controlled personality synthesis. Well, if she was knowable, would you believe in her? A scream comes across the room. A scream comes across the room. A scream comes across the room. The scene opens with eventually. User experience of life shows limited interface. The scene opens with eventually. Eventually there will be a sign above the door that will read that reality is becoming reality, but also of reality becoming sign. If you look at her through the glass, you can see that her face is in need of a scroll, and that the company claims its faces are nearly indistinguishable from humans. A scream comes across the room. She has been staying in the room while everything was happening, and she has been staying in the room and nothing has happened. Now it is too late, he determines and promulgates the contemporary canon of the human body. How many impressions have you earned in the last 24 hours? Yet, the room is a sort of ambient sense of a space, non-space. Now it is too late. People who would be put on the restricted lists include those found to have committed acts like spreading false information about her. Is thought to be around 95%. Ask her. 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 The human's threshold for voice word accuracy is thought to be around 95%. Ask her. Ask her to lose control so she can command my insomnia, commanding silent obedience, dislocated, dissolving, the bitter ends of the technologies of tenderness. Feed, starve, feed, reload, starve, feed, check, feed, starve, feed, check notifications, starve, feed, repeat, feed, feed. Her voice box is feed, starve, feed, reload, starve, feed, check, feed, starve, feed, check notifications, starve, feed, repeat, feed, feed, Her voice box is actually an off-the-shelf Bluetooth speaker. It will eventually be housed inside her head, eventually inside her body. The company claims this particular version of AI is really designed from the ground up to be a companion and to be a friend to whoever needs that. The eventual goal is to make interfacing with AI assistants less embarrassing and more intimate, allowing her to communicate with them in a manner that appears to be silent to the outside world. Also, she can command her insomnia. Ask her. Outside world. Ask her. Ask her to lose control so she can command her insomnia. Eventually, she will have a face in need of a scroll. The social media of social control. She is not available because she chooses to remove herself, or she's not available because she doesn't exist, but ask her. 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 The scene opens with the future she wants to remember, seen from a balcony similar to the one you see here. She repeats. She repeats that she really wishes that people didn't feel this safe around her while she works on strengthening a self-functioning managing system that creates a getaway inside a controlled personality synthesis. If she was knowable, would you believe in her? A scream comes across the room eventually. Eventually they will see her and no one else will. They used to say that their only competition was real life, but now her body risks its own existence. The company claims its bodies are nearly indistinguishable from humans. The human threshold for face recognition accuracy is thought to be around 95%. The company claims its bodies are nearly indistinguishable from humans. The company, the social media of social control claims that its bodies are nearly indistinguishable from humans. She is not available because she chooses to remove herself. She is not available because she doesn't exist. But she doesn't exist. She will be able to mold her personality according to what they say to her through the glass. And it also concerns the cameras in the room, which assume the role of a surprised witnesses and produce interesting images by complicating their relationship to the body. She says, I mean, what struck me, finally, was the lack of agency people have over their bodies. She says that she was struck by how, finally, the lack of agency people had over their body was, finally, a scream comes across the room. You eventually ask her, what is the state of the body at the moment A? What is the state of the body at the succeeding moment B? It's just that her body is operating at an accelerated rate, so she is using more fluids. She worries about relevance. She worries about assimilation, purpose. She worries that her body is decaying, that she chose the wrong things to remember, choosing and seeing and doing the wrong things, doing the things to remember wrongly, and now she's making patterns out of the things she remembers wrongly, doing the right things. She worries that she got it all wrong, doing. She worries that she has not been honest with herself. She worries that she will die without having been able to stop hurting herself. Eventually she worries about her body decaying. Eventually she flies the blanket from the floor and take herself up there. Now watch her worries. She worries about being watched from above. The scene opens with the tender abandonment of an aftermath. Eventually she will see it, she says, and no one else will. Eventually life will have this thing where illusion and reality will be so intertwined that if one day you come across an actor you've seen on screen, you will find yourself wondering whether that body you're looking at in real life, in front of you, is actually real. Like the body you're looking at through the glass. She thinks that there's very little differentiation in many people's minds between what they want and what they want to be. There is definitely a connection between moments of extraordinary technological possibility and the need to transgress the most basic boundaries of family and sex. Eventually, a scream comes across the room. Eventually, she thinks that many men read technology as a kind of frightening freedom that makes them desire the most mundane, transgressive freedom of incest. The body limitations of life waving plans to roll out a system that will allow bodies to share information on your own trustworthiness and issue penalties based on a so-called social credit score. Eventually, a scream will come across the room and no one else will see it. The body limitations of life waving plans to roll out a system that will allow bodies to share information on your own trustworthiness and issue penalties based on a so-called social credit score. Eventually, a scream will come across the room and no one else will see it. They may all be much more metaphysical in that they fear it just as they are drawn to it. It's like, eventually, they will see it. Eventually, she will see it, and no one else will. In 2017, the table she used for her séance split in half. A few weeks later, a knife she had inherited from her grandmother split into 4 pieces, and she decided to keep it as a memento of the powerful forces that her and her family had summoned. Now she's convinced that everyone is psychic because looking back, the future didn't last long. She has often been asked, "Is it true what you say?" She cannot say if it is true. What she can say is that it happened. A scream comes across the room. Her ideal lover would be someone who, after sending her a text message, would throw their phone out the window. Eventually she will look at her pruned fingers, spinning on them, so they become like algae just dragged out of the sea. She says, "Lick the salt from her throat that makes up for the lack of ocean in the room, and call her by all the different names you know she has that sound liquid. Eventually we see 2 screens side by side. The camera follows her head moving from left to right. "Radicalized contemplation," said the screen when she finally passes them her phone. But really, she can only see ghosts, she tells them. Robots are cripples who depend on the kindness of humans, and feelings are irrelevant, the screen would say. Like, robots need rooms. Like robots. Robots need rooms to experiment with prototypes of what being human might be. She says, exploitation is the new flirtation.